Today, I'm going to share with you my experience at Gamescom, the biggest gaming event in the world. I could have done more, but to be honest, everything was so overwhelming that I was not prepared for it. There are some topics that I want to discuss. 3 days is enough or not? That's one question that I want to answer today based on my experience. There are huge games getting released, 2 or even 3 hours that you have to wait in line just to like test the game, especially for titles like Borderlands, Resident Evil, Little Nightmares, or no. But there's also, for example, the indie game area. And there are a lot of amazing titles. I gotta give them that. I'm a bit frustrated that I haven't spent more time there, but again, it was my first experience. I still have a lot to learn. This is also what I'm making this video, to just share that experience with you. So I just arrived on Friday in Cologne, Germany. It's also known as Cologne. Cologne is like the German name. I liked it. I liked the city. I don't know. But one thing that I was so annoyed by was the public transportation system. So for everyone who tells you Germany is punctual, there's so much structure and everybody follows the rules and stuff like that. Everybody except the public transportation companies. Because in Cologne, it was a mess. Like, I haven't seen that in my whole life. And I've been in places also in Germany where public transportation is bad. Maybe places like Stuttgart where also been huge scandals on the public transportation. Places like Berlin where public transportation is also not the greatest. But Cologne, guys, it was a different animal. Long story short, I wasn't able to find an accommodation within Köln. I mean, one that would have fit my budget. So I rented one in Pulheim, which is like small city in the northwestern part of Cologne. I needed 1 hour, sometimes 2 or 3 hours, because I had to wait for a delayed train. I know it might sound like a fantasy, especially in Germany, but no, that happens. It's in Cologne. Don't go there, just joke. This was my way in the first day toward the event. I was very happy and excited about it, as you can probably tell. Köln Messe, it's the name in German. Cologne Event Center, something. There was this weird thing that you had a ticket, which you can use to like check in and enter the area, but then you could also get like a bracelet, and you kind of need the bracelet because there are like 3 types of bracelets for people older than 12 years old, 16 years old, or 18 years old. Depending on the color of the bracelet that you had, you could play specific types of games. It was my first time at a gaming event, and then I found paradise. I found the booth of my dreams. That one? Cult of the Lamb comic series, Cult of the Lamb play cards, Cult of the Lamb poster, Cult of the Lamb mousepad. I'm a huge fan. I'm a big fan of the game, of the series. They're releasing a DLC now. I'm going to play that as well. Their booth was so nice. These guys are amazing when it comes to like aesthetics. This was the development team, right? I've talked with some of them. It was a really nice experience. I've kind of goofed around with their props. And then I saw the actual lamb because they had a mascot as well. So I just lined myself again for like photos. But that was one of the best experiences that I had in the first day. I was telling you, I kind of forget the thing. So they had a hall. It was called Hall 5, I think, where they had all the merch and stuff, and then they had also merch from different publishers, but like not all publishers had like actual merch or like things you could buy from them directly at their booths. But again, everything was so chaotic, everything was so overwhelming, so much content. I was so at some point I just dissociated. I just like blacked out. I think I just sat on the floor for 2 hours at some point because it was so much to do. I also wanted to create some content, but it was kind of hard, as I was telling you, to create quality content, especially because of my equipment, and it was such a noisy area, right? These ones were a company that did like custom controllers. You could customize your own controller, every tiny piece, like every button, everything. They had everything 3D printed, I think, or something like that. Then there was the merch store, their official Gamescom merch, where I bought some bracelets. I bought a t-shirt because I wanted to have at least a t-shirt. And then it was this huge robot as well, which was the mascot of the event. It had an operator. I think there's a human inside. Although this guy had like a huge remote control, and there were some bodyguards roaming around it. You could take pictures and videos of it. He also interacted with random people. It was so nice. That was the indie game area, which I didn't spend too much time during the first day, but I've seen some interesting projects there, among which there were also some university projects. Students building games from German universities. It's called rawtalentbooth.com. At least you could access their website on this page. Also, my university where I studied was there with a couple of games. I wanted to try them out, but again, the place was so huge and I've lost too much time at popular titles. I'm a bit ashamed of myself. I should respect more indie developers, especially that I know how this whole world works. Then there was this cool area with remote control cars that were drifting. There's a community behind. Sorry for being such an uncultured swine, but they basically were drifting. These ones were the people controlling the cars. They even like had their own garage where they like built cars and modified them. Body peel for the memes, guys, for the memes. I have not actually bought or watched anything, but just wanted to film that as well. And then they came like the big halls, and the big halls were like with the big publishers, big games, big props, as you can see in this video as well. You could basically game test there. Most of them, especially the big ones, were handing out stuff, stickers and posters and a lot of fun stuff. I think World of Warcraft handed out balloon swords. It was the Frostmourne from the Lich King DLC. This was the Pokemon World booth. They also had a lot of things. I'm really big fan of Pokemon, but I'm a bit disconnected from the scene, especially from the new games. But they had a lot of cool events. They had some quests, so you had an app where you could like track your quests, and Pokemon Go, I remember, had some really cool stuff. So first day was like just a speed running all 11 halls, seeing what's up, what's happening, what options do I have. And then on the second day, I've mostly playtested, and I waited in lines. I walked a lot, I think around 20k, 30k per day. There was Borderlands 4, and I have a cool story with Borderlands 4. 4. There are a lot of games on my bucket list, but unfortunately I was not able to play them. I have not played a single Borderlands game, but I've played Borderlands 4. This was an interesting one. Like, they kind of had this huge hamster thingy, Toa and the Guardians or something like that. I also played it because the queue wasn't that long. It's similar to Hades, a rogue-like game where you have more characters that you control and you always go into runs with 2 characters simultaneously. There was this huge-ass farming simulator 25 booth, which was crazy. This huge machine that you could just enter and take pictures with and stuff like that. Harvester machine? Harvester machinery thingy, I don't know. And there were like specialized sim racing setups for like driving tractors and such machinery. And then there was Silksong. There were 2 booths where you could test it. One was at the Xbox or on a Switch 2. I tested it on Switch 2 because I think the queue was a bit shorter. It depends a lot on what you want to do and in which day you want to do, because on Saturday, especially on Sunday, it was full. Like, it was full. You could barely move. They were like sometimes redirecting the traffic of the people. They could only walk like in lines to not merge with each other and stuff like that. Yeah, the place was huge, and you had a map which was not even loading anymore on Sunday because too many people were trying to access it at the same time. But yeah, this was the World of Warcraft because they released also a DLC at Gamescom. Expansion, I think they're called expansion. Sorry for being an uncultured swine again. So that was their booth. They had kind of a tavern and their own stage and everything. They had their own event list and stuff. So normally the event closes up at 8, so people kind of start cleaning up stuff, switching off the lights, but nobody really takes you out of the place, so you can stay longer if you want, but we don't have much to do. The booth of World of Warcraft was the only one still active at 8 during the first day, and I just went there, just did German rap about World of Warcraft. I was random. Netflix had a lot of booths. They had booths on One Piece. They were also casting for German voice actors for the next One Piece season, the live action adaptation. So they had the reinterpretation of the Going Merry ship, which you could also walk on the deck of. And they had this huge Luffy statue. I don't know if it's a statue. Yeah, something like a statue. That was day 1. This is day 2. So here I entered Gamescom again. During day 2, as I've told you already, I mostly game tested stuff. I've started with Final Fantasy, the remake. I've played Donkey Kong Bonanza, and I've seen what the whole fuss was about. It's a nice game. I was a bit too harsh to judge it. And again, I'm kind of judging everything that comes from Nintendo, so I'm a bit biased on this topic. It feels like they're just becoming a soulless company that want to monetize people for every little shit, and I'm really frustrated on this topic. So this is why I usually try to keep myself away from Nintendo in general. But there's a huge community, and I also understand them because Nintendo is legacy and they have a lot of titles. I've played Donkey Kong Bonanza. It's a cool game. You can crush, smash, destroy a lot of stuff. It feels somehow very arcade-ish, but it also brings back the nostalgia. They also gave us these ties, just a cardboard tie. You could fold it and put it, and you had like a tie. That was cool. In general, demos were a bit long from my point of view. They were around 10 or 15 minutes, and you might say, that's not too long, but imagine like 200 people trying to play that game at the same time, and then there have around 10 computers or consoles where you could test it out, and then the line just gets huge. Then I've lined myself up for Borderlands 4, and the guy there told me, okay, maybe you have to wait for 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, and then it was a random cosplayer, right? I don't know if there was a campaign or something. She just approached me and she was like, are you waiting for Borderlands 4? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, are you alone? Because Borderlands 4 is a co-op game, usually going like in group. And I was like, yeah. And she was like, okay, take this fast lane bracelet. And I was, are you sure? Like, I should maybe probably pay for it. It was around 20 or 30 euros, I think, something like that. She was, no, get it for free. A friend of mine couldn't make it and we want to give it up. And I was like, are you sure that you, yeah, sure. It was such a cool experience that brightened up my whole day. And they had this amazing demo area and booth with these huge props and cosplayers. It was crazy what Borderlands brought there. And there were like around 60 PlayStation consoles, and you could test out Borderlands on it, and I've tested it, and it was really nice. It was really nice. Really liked it. I think I got this mask as well for free. Then I've lined myself up for Little Nightmares. So as you can probably tell already, here I waited for almost 2 hours, and to be honest, I was a bit disappointed by the Little Nightmares demo. Little Nightmares is a co-op game. You could choose one of the characters. One had ranged attacks with a bow, and the other one had melee attacks with a wrench. Depending on which character you chose, the other one was played by the computer, so you weren't playing it with real people like you did on Borderlands, for example. So that means it was really annoying because the computer, I don't know, it wasn't well optimized, or I was bad at it, maybe both. But I chose the range guy, so the computer played as a bow guy, and then you had some enemies in the first part of the demo that you had to shoot with arrows. Quite an annoying demo. That was my whole take on it. You can also watch it on my social media channels. Then there was the cosplay contest, which was amazing. I think it was the highlight of the second day. I really liked it. There were in total 30 participants with different costumes from different games and shows, from Elden Ring, League of Legends, a lot of League of Legends cosplay. This was also League of Legends, Akali skin. They had this decibel meter, so one of the prizes was decided by the crowd, by how loud the crowd applauded. This is the best part of Köln or Cologne, whatever. Dome. I'm a bit sad that I was not able to visit it from inside as well. And then I've tried initially to line up for Capcom's Resident Evil Requiem. I think it was also one of the biggest highlights of the event. I really liked their trailer and I wanted to play it, but unfortunately the line was a bit weird, so they only let in an amount of people. I think the queue was already 2 hours when I got there, and then they didn't let in more people. Anyways, I've played Onimusha with the Sword. It's going to be released next year. Action RPG, a quite nice puzzle game. You have this cool glove that you use during the combat, and you also use out of combat to solve puzzles and see mystical things. Imagine taking Wu Chang and Ghost of Tsushima and merging them together. And then I finally spent some time in the indie game area. I played Super Meat Boy 3D, and I got stuck again at the stage for too long because I was stupid. I was not able to make a pretty silly jump, but the game looks good. It's a bit hard to get used to the 3D environment. It's a 3D platformer. I always find 3D platformers a bit difficult. And that's pretty much it. I could have filmed more. I could have made more content next time. At least it was an experience and I've learned a lot from it. You have to organize your days and you have to really know what you want to do, because otherwise you kind of just end up walking a lot, doing some stuff, but maybe at the end not doing everything that you would have wanted to. There are a lot of big titles, and those are also the ones where you have to wait for the longest time. So you kind of have to prioritize that versus playing like some maybe other indie games or getting goodies and participating in mini games and all that yada yada stuff. There's a lot of stuff that you can do. All right, so my takes on the experience so far. Cologne's public transport is shit. You need to get used to that. I would advise you to buy accommodation within the city, even if it's more expensive, because otherwise you will regret it. Trust me. 385,000 square meters. That place is huge. You need half a day just to get used to the place and where you find everything. The digital map is maybe useful, maybe not, depending on how hard you study it. So are 3 days enough, 2 days enough for Gamescom? Depends a lot on what you're planning to do. If you're only going to indie games, not up for like testing all the big titles and waiting in lines, then 2 days might be enough, maybe even 1 day, but that would be really rushed. If you really want to take advantage of everything that's there and do some cool stuff, you need around 3 days. I would say take a day during the week where you focus more on playtesting the big titles if you're really into that, because then the queues are also shorter. Reserve at least half a day to get used to the place, or really plan everything in advance. If you want to do content, just double the amount of time that you need and be prepared for a lot of background noise. I'm definitely going there next year as well, hopefully with some friends. It's helpful to have someone by your side who can film you, look at the plan. And the next event that I'm attending, it will be in UK Comic-Con in London, so stay tuned for more content from there. And if you want to support me, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel. Join the nest for more content, and don't forget, we're streaming every Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday from 7 p.m. Central European Time. See you soon.